Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Our guest today has taken a passion for art and storytelling to combine them into providing what she calls clarity through creativity. We're going to dig into all that and more with my friend, Heather Willems. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you on. Since I met you, your personality is perfect for this podcast, and your transparency is perfect for this podcast. So I've been excited to share your story with people. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. All right. So before we get started, so I know how to refer to you throughout this conversation, will you please share your pronouns?
She, her.
Fantastic. All right. You are from the Midwest, not from the Twin Cities, born and raised. So where did you grow? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and lived in Pittsville, Wisconsin until I was 18 years old.
So where in proximity to like Green Bay is Pittsville?
It's about not that far, like half an hour, I think.
Yeah. Like, is it by Appleton?
It is near, well, I went to Pulaski High School, so it's right near Pulaski, and Howard is over there. Yeah. So it's on the west side. It's like northwest of Green Bay, just a little bit.
Pulaski, that's very Wisconsin. Anything with the ski on the end, right?
You know, there's two Pulaski, Wisconsins. Two.
No way. Two
cities named Pulaski, Wisconsin. And you know it's true because my Wisconsin accent just came out.
It rears its ugly head every once in a while. I love it. All right. So tell me a little bit about your family dynamic when you're growing up, siblings, mom and dad, that kind of stuff.
Yep. I have a mom, I have a dad, a younger brother and a younger sister. So I'm the oldest of three. And we're all entrepreneurs, all of us. Well, you know what? Entrepreneur used to be a dirty word. So my parents were sole proprietors. There we go. And my brother and my sister also run their own business. So my parents either did something really right or really, really problematic. I don't know. So far, it's working out for all of us. So.
Do you think that their sole proprietorship, let's say, or entrepreneurship mindsets guided you into entrepreneurship, or was that something that you were isolated from, or?
No, we were very much part of it. So I was, I have fond memories of going on jobs with my dad. He did interior decorating. So we would go in and do marbleizing, and it was the 80s, right? So being on gigs with him, and then I was probably from the age of 7, like helping my mom organize all his files and go through, understanding what billing was. So it was always part of what, like seeing a small business in action was just part of life. And there are, so there are the stressful parts of it that I learned that I wish that I, could. Well, I mean, actively trying to rewrite in my own belief system of what I learned from that. But it was just the way things were. My mom was like, always had these big ideas like, oh, what if we did this? Or what if we had a store here? And sitting in a car, like counting cars going by in a certain corner to see if they'd like possibly buy coffee from her.
Crazy. So that's what your mom did. Did she have what did your mom do? What was your mom's business?
She was an artist she was an artist as well. So both my parents are creative. And my mom had an illustration business. And then, along the lines, she went into doing marketing because, it's hard to have two. It's nice to have one provider that has a stable revenue. But I think what was great about growing up with two creatives that had an entrepreneurial mindset is one, dreaming big, like everything. It was always like the yes and, like I have a sign behind me that says yes and. There's always like this, dreaming big idea. And then also the freedom that came with having your own business. So like we went camping like every weekend in the summertime, so it was like 4-day weekends were just how we lived. And that freedom came from having entrepreneurial parents.
Do your siblings also have, are they also as creative as you and your parents?
They are very creative. My sister is an incredible singer. Like has the most beautiful voice, and her husband has his own music production studio. And then my brother, his background is in music as well, but electronic music. So he has been a DJ his whole life and has run a record label, and now works for a company called Beatport. So actually, his entrepreneurial business is on the side right now, but it's still there and thriving.
Do you have do you have musical talents?
I sing my daughter to sleep every night.
That counts. That counts. I'll take it.
And I know, like, one of your, like, what's one thing people don't know about you? Like, we're fanatical about musical theater, which is like a dirty little secret that
I love it.
Comes out all the time.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. Well, that's going to be great in shaping your daughter, right? Like she's going to look back at those times and that's going to be a very fond memory, I hope.
Yeah, or very cringeworthy. We'll see. We'll see.
So talk a little bit about your high school experience. So what was high school like for you?
Yeah, perfect transition. It was musical theater. Like that's what I was. Like I loved and love like being on stage. So yeah, I found my passion in storytelling, in acting, in being part of a group ensemble, and working together as a team. It was just, I loved it. And I was on the drama club. Like I couldn't have been more involved, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which leads me to believe that you probably weren't too big into like the Green Bay Packers or any of that stuff that was going on, right?
That was the perfect time for driving lessons because everybody was in the stadium or like glued to their TV. So yeah, that's when I would like go to the mall and learn how to drive and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things I always like to talk about is either nature versus nurture. And we've kind of touched on that a little bit. And then paradigm shift of like when you knew that you were going to be an entrepreneur. And, a lot of this stuff that we've touched on a little bit, but there was a time that we talked about in the prep call. Talk about that conversation that you had with your dad about you were just kind of like, I'm doing this.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that this morning. It's a little bit of everything comes from love, right? Everything comes from a place of love. And so I was recognizing this morning that I am the first person in my family to go to college, much less get a master's degree. So when I told my father, we were on a bike ride in like fields in the middle of nowhere in Green Bay or in Wisconsin. And I was like, I'm going to, told him like, hey, I'm going to college and I'm going to go to be an actress. Like I'm going for theater. It was a hard no. It's like, it's like, absolutely not. And it came out in the way of him saying like, well, you better get a job as a waitress because you're never going to make it. And it came from a place of love. Didn't really feel like it. Even retelling the story doesn't always feel like it, but I took that as a motivator. And I was just like, oh yeah, watch me, just watch me. And that is something that has fueled me throughout my entire career. So I ended up going to school not for theater, but I went for photography because it seemed much more practical. Everybody needs a photograph, right? And so then I ended up teaching photography, and I thought my path was going to be as a teacher. And the thing that fueled me in those classes was like students would come in and say, hey, like my dad's making me quit this class because I have to get a real job. And it would just light me up. So I've really taken it on as it is my passion to help people shine bright in like their own purpose and in their own, area of passion. And so that, over the course of the years has been the thing that I've been the most proud of in my life, is helping artists to forge their careers, to forge a path through a career, to mentor small business owners, to grow $1 million business, coaching other small businesses to just like help them see the path.
Yeah.
You can really support yourself in your life with your passion.
Yeah. Do you, so you went to undergrad. I know you did a little bit of bouncing around, but you spent most of your time here at the University of Minnesota.
Yep.
That's kind of what brought you here first. And then where did you get your master's? What was your master's in?
My master's is also in photography.
Okay.
So, I went to the University of Minnesota, bounced a little bit at MCAT, bounced around a little bit, but then worked in Minneapolis for several years doing photography, everything you could possibly do. It's just like, I wanted to learn everything. Like, how do you run a business? How do you create? And then ended up going to the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, because it was one of the best schools that gave you teaching experience. That was a state school, so that's where I went.
Yeah. And then, so how long of a program was that at Ohio State?
It was a 2-year program.
Full 2-year. So did you do any, did you work while you went to school, or did you, for your master's specifically, or were you just laser focused on doing that? And then also, doing a little bit of, I gotta imagine you were doing a little bit of teaching informally in there too.
Well, they really put us to work in terms of teaching, so much so that I decided I didn't want to be a professor. So it was a gift that was uninvited again, but I was very, very focused. There were only a couple jobs that I did for a photo stylist here in Minneapolis. But I only did 2 gigs, I think, while I was in school. So very focused.
Yeah. So after you were done getting your master's at Ohio State, did you come back to the Twin Cities, or what did you do then?
No, I did a bit of traveling. So I spent a chunk of time in New Zealand. My brother was living, and then came back, moved to Chicago to follow a boy who ended up becoming my husband. So good thing that worked out.
It did work out.
And then, we were in Chicago. He was living in Chicago. Liam O'Brien is his name. And we were living there. And we were like, if we're going to be artists, come on, let's like do it for real. So we moved to New York. The whole idea of like, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
The bright lights. Yep. The bright lights.
Oh yeah. All the
things.
All the New York. So yeah, then we moved to New York after Chicago.
And what was that? Was that a big cultural like slap in the face moving to New York, even though you spent a little bit of time in Chicago, or did you transition relatively smoothly?
I have to be honest, like when the moving truck arrived at our front door in Brooklyn, I just had a huge sigh of relief. It was just like, oh my gosh, I've just been I felt like I was home for the first time in my life living there.
Yeah. That's, well, I mean, and that could have gone either way. Right. But I would have not been surprised with either answer, but I think, there's that feeling like you're in a spot where you need to be, and you've made that not only the financial investment, but the personal investment to go in and do that. So what was the first thing you tackled when you were in New York? What was the first gig, or how did you get into the business community there?
I think it was a little bit of a roundabout way, but I ended up working at Capgemini, which is an IT consulting firm. And within that organization, they had something called the ASE, Accelerated Solutions Environment. And it was really cool in the sense that it brought together all of the things that I had been doing over the course of my life and putting it into a business context. So I was doing like video production, I was drawing, I was like, doing research, gathering information, I was teaching. So I was like facilitating small group breakouts, writing assignments. So it was like it was a culmination of all the things I'd been doing up to that point in my vast 27 years. And it was just a really neat thing to see. And then also I was unique in that environment because I was an artist. Actually, there were a lot of artists in that environment, but I was invited into teams as, because of my skills as an artist. And so folks would say like, here, Heather, take this marker, go up to the front of the room and draw what people are saying. I was like, I'm a photographer, right? Like I take pictures, I don't make pictures. And they're like, yeah, you're an artist, go do it. So that was my first introduction to graphic recording in that sense. So and that's listening to people's conversations, drawing up what they're saying in real time. So pulling out the key ideas and making it visual so they can see what they're saying. So that was like my first introduction into business in New York. But simultaneously, I was just talking to somebody about this last night. When I moved to New York, networking wasn't working. Like I didn't know anybody. I couldn't meet anybody. It was so hard. And went to all of these. And this is why Coalition 9 is awesome. But I couldn't find my footing there. So we're like, well, let's just create our own event. So every month we'd invite artists to get together and we called it the art crit thing. And then we'd go to somebody else's studio every single month and we would talk critically about their artwork. And so everybody was invited to, bring somebody that they admired to the next session. And that's really was like the seed that grew my creative network in New York. So I think those two things, it's important that they happened at the same time, right? Like I was getting my feet wet in business, but also building an incredible network of creatives that to this day are just mind blowing. They're like,
was that some of the inspiration around you wanting to then start your own business as well? Or did you just feel like I can't work for anybody anymore? I mean, that's what I like. I feel like entrepreneurs like yourself are like terminally unemployable, right? Like just right? Like they're just so,
or maybe everybody can employ us.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I'm terminally unemployable. And I would be a terrible employee for anybody because I have, I got my own mindsets. I gotta believe that there was some of that building that community of artists, and then also just getting that fire that's burning inside you that was kind of, it just sparked it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a real job. Like I never really wanted a real job. Like I think the closest I had was like working at Subway, or something like that.
You're a sandwich artist?
Yeah, I was a sandwich artist. That's right. I've always been an artist. I've always been employed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually I always knew that I was going to start my own business. I just didn't know what it was going to be. The first business, I guess, was as a photographer, having my own, whatever it was a Crave Photography. That was the name of my business when I was in my 20s, Crave Photography. So that was my first business. And then moving to New York, when the economy tanked in 2008, I was freelancing. And so it was kind of just like, well, all right, so we're not getting any work. What if I took this drawing thing and built a website? Like, I wonder if I could, I don't know, it seems that there's great value in it. People seem to really need it. Let me see if I can, just use that. And the thought process was like, if I can put on an art exhibition, I can create a business. How hard could it be?
Right.
How hard could it be?
You're right.
And, there's a lot of correlations, how it was very similar. You have an idea, you see if people like it, you put it out into the world, you market it, you create, generate a little bit of revenue or at least some interest, and then put it out into the world and then hope that people buy it.
Right.
Or convince people to buy it, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So just kind of did that. And that's where Image Think Point One started. That was my first company. Very quickly after that started, my best friend at the time, Nora Herding, and I came together and we're like, our styles are so similar. Nobody can tell the difference between our work. Like we just thought we'd be pulling a fast one on somebody if we like came together and did business together. You know, we'd have more time in the studio. If like she could do gigs, then I could be in the studio. So we partnered up and it became Image Think 2.0. And from there, we built that business with literally, we put $500 in the bank because we thought it would be a good idea. We're like, I guess we should have some money, like put some money. I don't know what we're going to use it for, but we should probably have some. And so we put $500 in the bank. And when I sold it, it was nearly a $3 million company the revenue was around $3 million per year.
Yeah. How many people did you have? Was it
we had 15 people on staff.
Wow. Yeah. Was it that same premise of visual storytelling and drawing ideas and collaboration that way?
Yeah, we were a graphic recording agency is what we ended up becoming. And like I said, we brought in artists, trained them how to stand up at the front of the room with a big old whiteboard, whether it was at a conference or in a or in a strategy meeting. And we trained them to listen for those key ideas, draw up the stories that people were telling around the ideas, to create a real-time visual image, like a real-time visual summary of what was being said. So the roots of that started at the ASE at Capgemini. So it was all business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of models and a lot of models, and it's like it was all about strategy, business strategy. So we eventually realized that marketing at conferences was a good idea.
Yeah, right. Smart. Yeah.
Thousands of eyeballs looking at you. Super cool to discover that was actually a way that we could generate revenue is by selling the service at a conference, but it was actually also a great way to expose people to the value of it.
Who was your first client? You remember?
My very, very first client, it was actually at Babson. I did a workshop at Babson, Babson School of Management. But in that room, there was a woman from Becca Dickinson, pharmaceutical device company, and then also from NASA. And so I ended up sitting between the two of them at dinner. And I remember the dinner we had, it was like Italian, it was like fish, so delicious, capers. And I was really poor, right? It was a really good meal. But I remember chatting with them, like talking with them all night about like the power of visual storytelling and about, how to visualize your ideas and how powerful that was in strategy meetings. And so Becca Dickinson and NASA became my very, very first clients. So, it's like, it tell people like, oh, drawing, it's easy. It's not rocket science. Well, except for when it literally is rocket science.
Except for when you're drawing rocket science.
For NASA. Yeah. So once I had like NASA and a pharmaceutical or a medical device company under my belt, then it opened a lot of doors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How long did you have that business?
Just shy of 10 years.
Yeah. So let me do the math here. So 2008, that takes you to about 2018. Decided to transition out of that business. And then so, right. There's a mind shift that happens after, and there's a lot of emotional things that happen when you sell your business and you go through all of these different physical, mental, different things. What was that transition process for you personally as you were going out to try to recreate a new business or just do your next thing?
It was challenging. I have to admit, it was pretty challenging. One, it was challenging to coming to terms of just like, wow, this phase of life, these learnings are wrapping up, as the first part. And that, I think it took a little while for me. I was thinking about the pinnacle point of that. We adopted a child. which was like a big, perspective, shift of perspective and values. And then right around the same time, a friend of mine invited me to go see Tony Robbins. I'm going to say he begged me to go to see Tony Robbins. So I was like, not into it. But I have to admit, we were like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to bring it. So I'd like just jumped in with 2 feet. So why not? And I was really surprised at the results. I was like, oh, talking about visualization and looking into the future. It's like, wow, if I stay in this current state of where I'm at in my life, like I don't like what the future looks like. I just don't like it. So, so it's a whole other podcast talking about selling your business. But, after the sale of that business, it was tough. It was like a big transition. And it was probably the second or third time in my life that I felt like I went through a real identity shift. And I think that that's been the hardest part. And then, it's been a couple years, but now we're in Minneapolis, back in Minneapolis. So I feel like I'm kind of like going through another phase of identity shift. But in really just like stepping into my own again.
Yeah, I feel like, if when people go through that process and you build up a brand, right, and your brand is associated to the company, your personal brand is associated to that company brand, and it takes longer than people think. I've thrown out an arbitrary number of 18 months, but it takes like a long time for people to like reestablish what their new brand is, even though you might be doing the same thing. It's just different. And would you agree that it just takes longer than people think to reestablish kind of that brand / identity?
I feel like everything in life always takes longer than you think.
That's true.
It's like, oh, I'm gonna like crank out this email in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I do think it takes longer than you think. And I've seen people though, like, like when I was getting, when I mentally, I'd like look around at other entrepreneurs. I'm like, oh, look, like they sold their business and now they've got this new venture going and they're super successful and really happy. And then you actually dive in and talk to them. They're like, oh yeah, but my family life is falling apart. Or like, right. I actually like, go out for cocktails or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. This just fell into my lap and it seemed like a good opportunity. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's life, right? Like we just get to do life.
That's right. It's a big wheel, right? And there's so many different components, but it's always turning. So, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. That you made a huge decision then, and it was in COVID, I think, wasn't it, to move back to the Twin Cities? Like you went through probably a lot of conversations, and you and Liam are just constantly like trying to figure out, do we stay rooted here in New York or do we try something new now that the world is changing? I'd love to pick your brain on that a little bit.
Yeah. So the question's like, what was the decision-making process for getting here? Well, I think as horrible as COVID has been in so many ways for so many people, for so many businesses, I'm very, I always like can find the bright side in things, but it was a big gift for us in a way. So, one, it just blew up a lot of limiting beliefs that I had, just like was blowing up limiting beliefs everywhere. So first it was like, oh, I need to like be close to my office in order, need to live in New York. Yeah, no, sold the business, don't need to do that. Then it was like, well, I need to be in New York because I need to be near my clients. I need to be able on the spin of a dime, just be able to pop into my client's office. Well, no, don't need to do that. Yeah. Oh, well, what I do, it's like so personal and it's about, interacting with people one-on-one. Yeah, actually doing it virtually is much more intimate. So within 3 weeks of COVID coming in, lockdown happening, I was doing my first conference. So fortunately, the graphic recording that I had been doing, and I had set it aside to do more like in-person facilitated sessions, like thinking like design thinking combined with, this human-centered design. So like really getting people to do like the visual strategy work and innovation sessions, doing those in person. I set those aside, went back to what I knew of graphic recording, and we had been doing it virtually for ages on WebEx to work with our clients. So just kind of jumped into that, started doing some virtual conferences, which were awesome at the beginning of the pandemic. So that blew up that belief of that I needed to be in New York to be with my clients. And then of course, we had a 3-year-old who was in 50 hours of daycare, all of a sudden to 0 hours of daycare, as many people experienced. And so I think probably a shining moment where we're like, okay, it's time to go, was a culmination of a couple things. Like we had a lot of personal loss of people that we loved dearly. And then combined with, I'd taken over the kitchen table. I had all like these lights and like, 3 monitors and a microphone and my iPad and like working with teams like across the country simultaneously. And my daughter and husband are like sitting on the ground with a picnic table, like, or a little picnic blanket, like eating dinner, like on the floor. It's like, this cannot happen anymore. 700 square feet is too small for 3 people to live and work in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a lot, right? So then you guys made the decision why did you make the decision to come back to the Twin Cities and not Wisconsin?
Well, we had a very extensive spreadsheet. We had a Google spreadsheet going on with different cities and requirements that we needed to have. We're both artists, but we do love our spreadsheets.
Good. Yeah.
So we were really looking for a city that we looked at our values, actually, went back to our values. Like, okay, family is very important. Creativity and a culture is very important to us. There's a creative culture. Diversity of thought and bodies is also very important to us, like diversity within that culture. Being in close proximity to nature, and also being in close proximity to a city. So we had narrowed it down, and family or friends like family needed to be the number one. That was our number one value that we were looking for. So we narrowed it down to San Diego and here. And then right when we were deciding, there were all the fires that were happening in California, and like our friends in San Diego were just starting to be like, yeah, we see them coming. So we're like, well, Minneapolis it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So so let's talk about what you're doing now. So TwoLine Studios, I met you through our friend Matt Beecher, who introduced us, and you very fortunately became a member of Coalition 9. So we got to know each other through that process, and my light bulb went off of like, okay, you have this amazing skill to be able to hear people say something and turn it into basically art, but yet also something that is tangible for people to hold on to, right? So you came and did one of our workshops that we did last year on initiating change. It was a workshop on racial justice. And I tell you something, you sitting there with that iPad Pro, and that was blank. And I was like, what is going on? And that thing was amazing what you came up with. And then you've done some stuff for Darren Lynch at Irish Titan, and you're very quickly making an impact on a lot of people here in the Twin Cities. I love what you do. Now, I have to ask you this. Do you find yourself, if you're sitting and even just listening to anything, do you just find yourself doing this to where it's almost like you're on autopilot, like it just happens? That's the way you think?
Yes. I mean, that's what I've been doing it professionally for 15 years. So it really is like how I process information. I'm constantly like synthesizing things down to their essence, and trying to tell the story with pictures. So, I mean, of course, my notes that I'm taking when I'm on a client call and no one's seeing them, like it's,
Right.
you know, I still do the bulleted list and stuff, but if it's something that I get the luxury of really listening to, it often does turn out as visual notes.
So what are this is your time to like kind of do a little bit of a plug for what you do. So what are the types of opportunities that you thrive in, right? So what type of environment can you provide the best service?
Well, I've been doing a lot of innovation sessions recently. So anytime, really, I mean, it's anytime people are sharing really big ideas and they want to bring people together. So I'm going to talk about two things I think that are most exciting for me. So one, like right now I'm working with Johnson & Johnson and we're doing a series of 3 innovation sessions. So what our team is, or what I'm doing is I'm kind of understanding what the goals and objectives are of the team, designing a really engaging, creative virtual event. We're bringing together several facilitators. There's a graphic recorder on this on the set. There's a graphic recorder on the session, and the time just flies by because we are bringing together not only we're bringing in creativity, we're getting them to open up, be a little bit vulnerable, so they can have these really beautiful creative ideas, and then we synthesize it down and make it actionable. So we don't just leave the team with like all these great ideas, like, okay, have fun with all these really big, great ideas that are going to be really difficult to actually implement. We're synthesizing that and then, you know, setting them to milestones, action items, and, you know, all the things, making sure that they have accountability that's built in. So that's one area that's been really, really fun for me to work with teams is during those innovation sessions, bringing that creative element. And then the other area is the things that make me feel really alive is when I see leaders kind of like turn up the brightness of their own light, right? And that comes out, that has been coming out in, you know, when I'm coaching people or mentoring small groups, leading small groups to really tell their own story, right? So it's like they might be talking about company values, or they might be talking about, you know, distilling their purpose statement, or, you know, looking at the company vision, and the leaders or the employees within the organization are trying to find their place in the visionary story. So it's creating the space where people can really be seen, where they can tell their own story, where they can connect their purpose and their reason for getting up in the morning and going to work to the visionaries, you know, idea of where they want to take the company. So it's
where do you think you want to take this? So you've scaled a business, you've sold it in your journey. Now you're doing it again, and you're growing this business. You've got obviously great opportunities that you're working and clients that you're working with. Some people take different paths, right? They're like, all right, I want to do this and I want to scale this again, or I only want to do this and I'm okay with it being this size. What does kind of the future hold for you?
Yeah, good question. I don't like, I right now, I don't have a super clear vision, but I have direction. This sounds so corny, but like I have direction from my heart of where it's going. And I'm a big believer in putting your vision and your ideas out into the world and attracting, you know, the law of attraction, like bringing people together to make that happen. So right now, honestly, between you and me and whoever's listening is, you know, I'm like, oh, I want to build another $1 million company and like have it employ all these people and have it be really successful, but also toying with the idea of keeping it really strong and having a really beautiful lifestyle business. So number one is building TwoLine to be focused on working with good people for good reason and providing really good work. Like that's at the heart. That's like at the heart of what I'm doing right now. And then, we are still, facilitating sessions and leading these virtual meetings and bringing in creativity and through graphic recording and illustrations and videos and all of that stuff. So that's kind of the core of my business. But the part that's a little bit, I don't know the how, but I kind of know the what and the why of what's next. I'm building a series of workshops that are like creative leadership workshops based on my book, Draw Your Big Idea, which I wrote a couple of years ago with my business partner. And kind of like diving into that passion around the personal professional development that we focus on in Coalition 9. And then along with the visual storytelling, the visual strategy and the graphic recording and drawing. So like using that creative leadership to build out a series of workshops, sessions, and the how, I'm not sure what it's going to be. I don't know if they're going to be, week-long sessions that are, in these big companies, or if they're going to be something that's virtually online, but that is the direction where this is going right now. It's very exciting.
So I love it, right? Like we're literally listening to you workshop this. You're in workshopping mode as you're working through the how. And that I think is so much of the mindset of so many different people in an entrepreneurial mindset is always ideating, coming up with new offerings, new ways of doing things, but yet not really knowing the how. Like, okay, I know the what and I know why I'm doing it, but I got to get through the details, and you're literally in the middle of that. And that's, to me, that should be inspiring for people that are listening to this, that like, listen, you're not alone when it comes to these class, these ideation sessions. You're having to do what you do for clients, for yourself. And I'll tell you, the other thing that I love is that I saw you post this on LinkedIn, and you've said this before, and this is where you and I think are like kindred spirits in some ways, that, my saying is good people need to know good people. And you say, doing good work for the good reason for good people, and that, a lot of good in there. And I think it's like, basically, I just like finding the right people, the right human beings that I want to align with. And that is how you're building your business. And that is just that means so much to have that as part of our community. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're great.
Very, very excited. Thanks for letting me be vulnerable in this space too.
Oh, well, that's what we're all about. That's what our community is about. So transparency and vulnerability. So I appreciate you bringing it. So we're gonna touch on, before we sign off here, on how people can get a hold of you, but we are going to make a hard left turn here and go right into 9 questions, so people can get to know you a little bit better. Can you confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
I have no idea what you're about to ask me, and my hands just started sweating. So,
Heather, I love it. All right, let's dig in then. What is your favorite hobby outside of anything art related?
Ooh, bike riding.
Oh, sweet. Is that a family thing that you do, or is that something that you like you're doing like on your own and you're just getting a workout in?
I love moving my body so I can think.
Ooh,
and
good.
I love riding my bike. I love yoga. I love lifting heavy things. But if I'm like in my zone and thinking about my happy place, it's like on a bike, riding through nature by myself, preferably.
Yeah, and that's that. So you answered that second question. Good. What is the last gift you gave someone?
Like a physical thing?
No, I don't care.
I'm going to go with a non-physical thing. So yesterday, my daughter asked me what manifestation was. So I taught her like a little manifestation meditation, and she manifested a new friend and a purple book yesterday.
I love it. Yeah, that's good. That's way better than any physical gift that you could give somebody, in my opinion. What is your biggest pet peeve?
The first thing that came to mind is when people tell me no.
You're such an entrepreneur. I love it. Yeah, I have that problem too. Who would play you in the mini series about your life?
Oh my gosh. Okay, first thing off the top of my head, like I don't really know very many actresses or actors, but this is so embarrassing. I would say Winona Ryder.
Ooh, yeah, love
But
it.
like maybe go back to the 90s. I just watched Girl Interrupted not too long ago, and I remember when that came out, and I was like, oh my God, that's so me. So yeah, Winona Ryder.
I love it. She's great. She made a great comeback in Stranger Things, and I never knew where she went. And I don't know if you watch that show, but she's great, and it brought back those same feelings of like how much I liked Winona Ryder in the 90s. So it was good.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
You
She's
should.
the first person who came to mind. I don't know the names of many actors and actresses.
All right. Well, that's a great answer. What was your first concert?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is again what just popped into mind. Mike Watt.
Oh,
Do you remember Mike Watt? It was at First Avenue. And it was like the first big conference or concert I was at.
yeah. Was he kind of was he alt rock? Like, I thought I
It was
remember
like
him sitting in with Pearl Jam on one of their albums.
very likely. Yeah, I was friends with all the kids from Radio K. And so
Yeah.
like one of my roommates was a distributor for a CD company. And so we just had CDs stacked up literally to the ceiling, and we'd get free concert tickets. And I recall that as my first concert, was going to see Mike Watt.
Good answer. I love that. What is the average time you wake up and the average time you go to bed?
Wow. I usually get up my alarm goes off at 4:50, and I'm usually up at about 5 minutes after 5. And I am in my room with the door shut at 8:30 usually
You are
at night, and like very often go to sleep before my daughter does.
I'll tell you something. I'm going to say, like, I ask this question occasionally. I don't ask it every time, but I like maybe every third guest or something like that. More often than not, people go to bed before 9 o'clock or 9 o'clock ish and wake up super early. And I used to be like afraid to say that. Like I go to bed at like 8:30 and usually I'm falling asleep before 9. And now I'm unapologetic about it. And now you're even reinforcing this more. So
Friend of mine he refrained me. He's like, oh, it's because you work out so much. Like you got to go to sleep early.
Right. Well, you do need your rest. It's good for you. What do you do to keep yourself grounded?
I've been doing meditation. I've really gotten into it probably for the past 7 years. And so now I meditate for at least 30 minutes to an hour every day. But it's really part of the whole morning ritual of getting in exercise, meditation, and journaling. Is that's the start of a good day for me.
Is it any type of TM, or is it mindful, focusing on your breath, or anything?
No, it's not. I feel like I'm still really in an experimental phase. Like committing to TM was just like a lot. And whatever I was about to, I was thinking about it, just seemed like too big of a commitment. But yeah, just over the course of the pandemic, I do for at least like a half an hour to an hour every day.
That's a good amount. That's way more than me. I'm a daily as well, and if I'm at 10 minutes, then I've considered a big day. So
well, I mean, like once you start doing it, like you can, like while we were starting this podcast and those 3 minutes we were getting ready, I was just like, okay, let's download the, so I was able to do a little mini meditation, just getting ready for this.
Yeah, I do it. I do it before we record too, just get my head in the game. So a lot of similarities there. All right. What is your favorite sound?
Well, it's got to be a nature sound. So it's either the wind moving through leaves, or the sound of waves. Or maybe it's my daughter's voice laughing. If it's in the morning, not when it's 8:30 at night and I'm tired, I want to go to bed.
I'll take all of those. All right. Boy, this went fast. The last one. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Well, the best advice I think that I've gotten this year, and again, I think I got it from a download, but a meditation download, but also reinforced by other people that I've met. Let it be easy. Like that's what this year was for me, is just like, you know what, this has been designed to be easy right now. Just let it be easy.
Yeah.
And I told this to one of my business coaches actually, and he's like, can you just add to the end of that and do the work? So
right.
Let it be easy and do the work.
Oh, I like that. Heather, I knew you would be an awesome guest. You killed it. I want more people to know you. And that's a huge reason why we do this podcast, is to amplify our amazing members and the good, positive impact that you're having on our greater community. How can people contact you?
Please, you can reach out to me at heather@twolinestudios.com. And then I'm also on the Instagram and all the social medias at TwoLine Studios, or at Heather_Willems.
I will put hot links to that, all of those in our show notes. So anybody that didn't catch that and doesn't want to re-listen to that, they can just click right on the link in there. I just have to tell you, I've gotten to know you and your skills are amazing. You have such an outstanding personality, which doesn't surprise me that why you're always successful. And I am so thankful that you are within our community. And I get so many, you don't even know this, but so many people from your group say so many great things about you and how you bring it every session. You are the quintessential type of person that is going to help this community grow. And I am so thankful for you. So and obviously being on the show, but thank you for being a part of this.
Well, that's very kind of you. And thank you for creating the space that, there's so many incredible people within this network and group. So I'm excited to know everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get there. I love it. So on behalf of Heather Willems, this has been the Power of Nine podcast. I am your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.